Hey there, and welcome to the daily podcast where wisdom smacks us with kisses or love taps. I'm MichelleSpiva, a wisdom strengthening coach, your host, and practical priestess of wisdom. Mwah. Join us daily to gain wisdom and mental strength as we tackle innovative thinking, address emotional and behavioral life traps, and yes, provide you with some practical how to's to wrap it all up. So settle in or crank up the speed 2x, whatever gets your mental processes firing as we dive in. Stay tuned. Yay! Hello there, dear one. This is MichelleSpiva, your practical priestess of wisdom and host of the daily podcast show, Wisdom Smack. Mwah. I am inviting you to join me on the flip as we take a look at the requirements of making your way in this new society when everything goes back in to what we used to do. You're going to have to be a new person, so you might as well start working on it now. Oh yes, there is work to be done. So join me on the flip as we go through how to find your formula. It's going to be good. I'll see you on the flip. Hello. Thank you so much for joining me on the flip. So we're going to go in and get into it and start talking about finding your formula. Now, let me start off by saying the reason why we are talking about finding your formula is because wisdom is doing what she does. Oh, yes, she is. She is calling to us from the streets, from the center of the market and at the gates, and telling us, look, you little darlings, look, you little confused ducklings, follow me and I will show you the way. And so today we're talking about this because the more we are shut in, isolated, self-distancing, whatever you want to call it, the more people are falling into malaise. Some of them are falling into idleness. And we all know what the old folks say about an idle mind, that it truly is a devil's workshop. But it's a little different now because we are not being just idle. No, 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 no. We are being we're being safe. And when I say safe, we're playing it safe by using a lot of our time to search out people who have the audacity to speak up and tell you what they think. You know, the figureheads, the folks with an opinion. And I'm going to say it that sometimes the squeakiest wheel is not necessarily the one that needs the most oil. So, right up front, I'm going to say that one of the reasons why wisdom has me giving this particular podcast out today is because she is like, stop outsourcing your ability to be critical in your thinking and your ability to find your own formula that works for you. A few days ago, I was talking about and giving shout out to a Twitter account, Naval, and it was there was a 2-minute little conversation about the difference between truth for the individual and consensus for the society. And I don't know what it is, but it's like after I talked about that and ruminated on it a little bit, I'm seeing it everywhere. And what I'm seeing is that a lot of us, and when I say us, I'm using this inclusively, not necessarily that I believe that you specifically or even me specifically are doing this, but it makes it more palatable if I use the word us. Wink, wink. You understand what I'm saying, right? Okay. So a lot of us are out here in these streets uh, trying to continue to outsource what we think, actually putting stuff on pause to not have any kind of feeling about anything until I check and see what this person says, or until I check in and see what this group says. And it is shocking to see that a lot of people don't have a North Star, don't have a point of reference for what their truth is, what their personal convictions are, because it has been so long since they've had to utilize that. Usually, you can get 50 billion snippets of what somebody thinks on your phone before you go to the bathroom in the first thing in the morning. Somebody always is hitting your phone with a notification. Well, this person said this and this happened and that happened. Let one thing happen, and you're going to get 50 different apps and buzzes and dings telling you what folks are saying about it. And the weird part about it is that because we are part of a society, you're going to find that just a few emerging consensuses rise up, oppositions most likely. And it's unfortunate because it robs us of the ability to sharpen our gray matter to continue to be healthy and to grow. Because in the end, this is not just about you being able to be a unique individual. Wisdom is way deeper than that. Wisdom wants you to be able to keep your mind. Wisdom wants you to make sure that for all of your days, you have your wits about you. For all of your days, you don't become trapped in unnecessary torture of a vapid mind where you don't know, you just sink into whatever somebody else says or whatever y'all want. Because that's what's starting to happen. When you get a constant diet of this for decades and going unchecked, you become nothing more than an animated vegetable that is encased in a meat suit. And so it's time for you to find your formula. It's time for us to find our formula. All right. So thank you for that little introduction. Let's start unpacking this. All right. So the first thing is I want to talk about checking our rituals, checking our habits, checking our routines. And it's one thing to read your paper in the morning, and when I say your paper, I really am talking about your phone because a lot of people don't read the actual paper in the mornings. It's one thing to get a check in on what society's consensus says, it's another to ingest that consensus as your personal truth. So that's the first thing. Breaking that routine does not necessarily mean you have to stop checking your notifications in the morning so that you can be abreast of what's going on. No, instead, break the routine of just being open to just take it in. Put some filters into it and make it qualify itself before you believe that that's what you believe. And by doing that, it starts to create brand new physical crevices in your brain. We've talked about this before, that the little indentations that you see on the actual brain are synapses and new pathways and learnings and habits. And the further the grooves down, the more you've done something. So your handwriting has a groove in your brain. If you drive a car, and that has a groove in your brain. All of the things, going to the bathroom, the way you brush your teeth, and all the routines and habits, they are pathed and mapped on your physical brain. So you can already see where there is a definite bridge between your mind, because remember what we just said about your mind. Your mind is actually what you think and what you process, and your brain is the physical matter of that. It's that gray matter that we talk about in the makeup of a physical body. So you have that connection between the mind and the brain. What the mind thinks, the brain records, and the brain is impacted by. Okay. So that's the first thing. Evaluating how you interpret the actions and the information received during your rituals and your routines and your habits. Qualify what you see. Learn to turn it over like a marble or a great, beautiful diamond in your mental perusal and inspection before you lock it into places. Oh, this is what I believe. Learn to do those things. And what I'm asking you to actually do is to dust off your critical skills to not only vet and filter information, but to also deduce things that you may not have seen if you had been more lax in how you evaluate what it is you're taking in. Because trust me, when wisdom starts having us looking at stuff like this, it's needful. Remember, at the beginning, well, the latter part of last year into this year, I could not get away from doing a lot of different episodes about the end of order as we knew it and how calamity was coming. And a lot of you, not a lot, I'm not going to have hyperbole in this podcast. We're not going to exaggerate, but more than usual either mentioned something or made it known that in the last few weeks that going back and listening to my podcast that I talked about with understanding chaos and calamity and how what the attributes and characteristics of chaos have been has helped you to get a better framework of what's happening in your own life, in your own world, with regards to a worldwide pandemic. And so thank you for giving me that feedback. And I can't even take the credit for it. I have to say it was wisdom because I am inspired to share what wisdom lays on my heart. And as I get these smacks, I share them with you. Well, sometimes quickly, but sometimes I have to meditate on them, let them percolate on the back eye of the stove. But today, right now, it's all about finding you, finding your formula. And let me put some parameters around formula. So, when we are talking about your formula, we're talking about the way you process and you mentally engage with your world, with you, with others, with your relationships, and even with the tangible side of this reality that we find ourselves in. And your formula is going to be what you do, what you think, and what you be to make it through this time because it's requiring an update of how we do what we do. So, have you ever heard of someone saying, "Oh, that show is has a formula. It's formulaic," meaning that it looks like a recipe. So it's kind of like, what's your recipe, if that's a better term? What's your recipe for how you make your day? What's your recipe for how you make your way? Yes, it is time for you to find the best formula for you now because change, oh my gosh, change is in the air. Remember, Mother Chaos brings death, destruction, messiness, danger, but she also brings change, transition. And do you realize that death and transition are the same thing? They're interchangeable. So when people say chaos brings death, no, it doesn't necessarily mean you die. It means that you transform. And that person you were before chaos showed up is dead to you now. That's what it means. Remember when we talked about dying daily? Dying to self daily so that when you wake up, you should not be the same person you were yesterday. Yeah, all of that is part of the wheel of chaos, which is also the wheel of fortune, fortuna. And fortuna is upon us. And yes, I am talking about fortune in that it can be a good thing. So it's important that we really start finding our formula. All right. So this is going to almost sound counterintuitive to what I just said. But one of the best ways to start finding your formula is to stop lusting for the new. Stop lusting to be mentally stimulated by something that breaks, yes, breaks your pattern. And the reason why I say that is because the lust and need for consumption of new all the time is a pattern in and of itself. And it's kind of like, not kind of like, it is frenetic, frenzied energy. It's when you have a kid who is rambunctious and can't settle down, and you're trying to placate them and get them to do things. So instead of forcing them to slow down, you just keep them busy with this and then that, and you run them ragged until they fall out. And that's what a lot of people are doing. That's why people are insatiably searching online all day with their phones in their hands, looking for what's new, what's next, what's now. And they don't realize that by doing that, they have gotten into a pattern. But this particular pattern starts to rob you from the ability to see your own patterns, your foundational patterns that you need to know so that you know what to change, tweak, or keep. And that is another big one. Yesterday, especially, I talked about how having certain wisdoms about interacting with other people, the relevance of closeness helps us and that we shouldn't forget that. Well, there are some foundational skill sets that a lot of people need to dust off because they don't know how to get along with anybody because they've been so busy running to the new, to the now, to the next. There is even a problem in the dating world right now because they have a paradox of choice. Because with the apps and stuff, you it's hard for people to commit because they're like, the first thing you do that upsets me, I can just swipe left and I can get the next one that's going to show up. So people feel like there is an endless supply of options and they've lost the main skill set needed or the main ability to recognize their particular patterns of how they behave and what they need to have a life worth living. And so, this, like I said, with finding your formula, I first want to say is that you need to look at your addiction, our addiction. Let me not say our addiction to the new, our addiction to fighting boringness with external pursuits of new stuff for the sake of it being new. And we have to return to the foundations of the patterns that we engage in. Why do we do the things that we do? And the only way you can really get to that is to slow down and stop being externally stimulated by pattern interrupts. Okay. So with recognizing your patterns, what I want you to do is I want you to then, because we've moved on to the next point, y'all, I want you to lock in on looking at tendencies and trends. Now, the way to look at a tendency, first and foremost, especially if you're looking at your own, because this is where the big blind spots are. Looking at your own, go through. And for some people, this is going to be easier than others. But I'm just going to say, go through times when there was peril and or something wasn't going to go right for you, and be honest with yourself and your recollection. What did you do? How did you behave and what was the outcome? And that's going to start to show you your tendency. For some people, you're going to realize that your tendency when hard times come is that you like to get somebody else to rescue you, and it might be hard to realize that. But the good thing about it is now that you know, that could possibly go into the column of stuff that you need to tweak to make your new formula. And it's a good thing because we get to make new formulas. And because the spirit of change is in the air, more so than most of the time, it's going to help you with this change. Oh, yes, it is. So another way to spot your tendencies are, no matter what tends to happen, what I don't want to use the word to define the word, but looking at what are your usual outcomes. There are some people that say, I'm a never do well. Whatever happens, I tend to find the worst way. Thinking about it, some people might say, oh, love and me, we don't work well. What tends to happen? And you don't want to look at it as whether you won or lost something. You want to look at what was your action. What was your thinking? I've been doing this exercise for a few days now, and I'm starting to learn some stuff about myself that it's hard to look at. I got trust issues, and I thought that I was very healthy, but because I'm doing what I'm asking you to do, I'm like, wow. Never would have seen that if I hadn't been able to have the opportunity to slow down a wee bit and start to work on self, to do the work that is needed and needful to keep that shadow side in check. Because unchecked, that's our monster. That's the boogeyman that goes bump in the night. And that boogeyman always knows where we are because that boogeyman is us. So looking at your tendencies, you're going to start to see some things that maybe you want to keep, maybe you want to tweak, or maybe you like, this has got to go. And then trends. When we talk about trends, I am not talking about social trends of fashion and the like. No, I am talking about the trends of thought, the trends of skill, craft, wisdom, insight, knowledge, innovation. What are we trending toward? And another easy way to look at finding out what the trends are is look at a pool. It doesn't have to be a large pool, but a pool of people that you tend to admire, that you tend to give your attention and your time and your interest to, and look at them in a pool, not individually, but in a pool, and see what are the similarities that cause you to be attracted to them. And you will start to see the trends. You will start to see that for the most part, they're going to have similarities in their thinking, in the way they approach life, even in how adventurous or how conservative they are. And once you start seeing those trends, you can put those down and look at where you tend to be. And I'm going to tell you, when you look at that, some of it is going to be where you figure out that you are a person aspiring to be like someone, meaning that you do not view yourself like these people. Or you're going to find, somewhere in between, or you're going to find that you watch these people because, and I know this might sound harsh, but because they make you feel better because you feel you're above them. Yeah, if you find that a lot of the people that you tend to give a lot of attention to, you tend to say, "Oh, that's my guilty pleasure." Be careful because it might be that you watch them from a status station above for entertainment, but that still does not mean that you're not being influenced by how they think, how they view their world, and the like. So write those down. And then the things that you learn from that exercise, decide which ones you want to keep, which ones you need to tweak or elevate, and which ones you need to get rid of. All right. So then here's the next one. With finding your formula, I want you to consider looking at producing unrefined thoughts that you can play around with daily. Now, unrefined thoughts are going to be those thoughts that either pop up or those thoughts that you find yourself having when you're taking your shower or when you're having your porcelain throne time or anytime that you find yourself daydreaming. Maybe you do it when you're making your avocado toast in the morning, or you do it when you are folding laundry or whatever it may be. Make note of those and grab your phone. Make a note, text to speech to text, send yourself a note so that you'll be able to go back and look at these unrefined thoughts, because what I want you to do is start to play around with them daily. I get people from here and there who will reach out and say, "I want to start a podcast, and how do you have these ideas every day?" And I'm going to tell you, one of the things that I learned from people who produce content daily, like Seth Godin, is that you have to connect with those unrefined thoughts, and you have to be willing to forego your need to be perfect. Those thoughts can be as contradictory, crazy, off the wall, embarrassing as need be, but they came to you for a reason, and some of them you will find they are simply there to point you into a direction that you will learn and grow from. But a lot of them are the seeds of great wisdom and knowledge and understanding that if you nurture them and you collect them, you'll make a beautiful bouquet of meaningfulness that will keep you steady, because there is a reason why it is time for you to find your formula, update it, and make it work for you, because wisdom is more hidden than ever. And wisdom is unique as well as collective. And I've said it on before on this particular podcast, to stay within the scope of the time that I talk with y'all daily. I'm working on the individual. I am working on you with your wisdom. And there are many others that work on collective wisdom. That's why I talk about the understanding of not being tricked by society to just ingest all of the consensus, because consensus, that's the agreement that we make to get along, does not mean that it is your personal truth. And so that's why we focus on this. So as we're moving into this new time where we'll never go back to the way we were after it's safe to go back outside, is that wisdom will appear to be hidden. And those who know their formula, know their recipe, they know how to filter what they hear in the mornings when they check in to figure out what happened in the world while they slept. They also know how to avoid following the new and the constant drip feed of vacuous new information that's there for the simple purpose of keeping you busy without advancing or doing anything. And because you now are aware of the fact that you need to evaluate your tendencies and you need to look at the trends affecting your life by the people who you are giving the most attention to, you'll be able to tweak, to refine, prune even. Be a true husbandman to the garden of your mind so that your formula for how you progress is stronger than ever. And engaging in those unrefined thoughts that come to you during the day to learn how to shape and mold them and how to learn and grow from them. Because when wisdom comes in this new time, when there is so much mental bandwidth that's going to be needed to learn how to matriculate, learn how to make your way in this new world, you will be tethered to um how you'll be tethered to how wisdom speaks to us as mother chaos continues to have her way. And so in my last few minutes, one of the things that I want to make sure that I impress upon you is that right now you're doing this, you're finding your formula, you're finding what makes you tick and work in a new way so that you can began to advance and accelerate. Right now, I know it might sound like or feel like you're in a holding pattern, like everything that you do is for naught because you don't seem to be making any progress, any movement anywhere. And it's a reason for that. It's a reason because we're learning to not necessarily slow it down, but to learn how to have a longer view, learn how to understand that in this new time, your efforts might not be returned as fast as you're used to, but that does not mean they're not working. It also is giving us opportunity to not be fooled subconsciously or otherwise by what other people are posting on social media, or no matter how many people say the same thing, because you're getting a chance to divorce yourself from believing that social consensus equals personal truth. You're learning to recapture your ability to be a critical thinker, to think for yourself. Remember, I've talked about what E.O. Wilson has said. He said there would be a time when we are drowning in information and starving for wisdom. And only those people who are able to synthesize a large collection of information to make it make sense are going to be able to lead through this time. And its time is upon us. And because of that, you have to stop waiting for other people to tell you what to think. You have to stop waiting for people's hot takes. You have to stop putting more faith in someone else's ability to do these kinds of skills than you have to do them yourself. Now is a time for us to update, upgrade, and demand that our minds come online to be able to handle what's ahead. Because less and less is it going to make sense. Less and less are you going to be able to keep up and understand what's happening, because this is the part I didn't want to scare you, but I'm going to go on and say it. Betrayal is in the air. Betrayal is in the air. And there are going to be a lot of people who are hurt to their core because their stands, their people that they loved are going to be shown for not having their best interests at heart. They're going to be shown for not being truly in sync and simpatico with what you thought they were about. And it's not their fault. It is that they know how to think for themselves, and you were along for the ride, and you gave up your ability to think for yourself, and you're getting upset when they don't think the way you think y'all are supposed to think. And so betrayal is in the air because that's part of the destructive process. That's part of the tear down to build you back up. You have to go through a pruning where all of your lifelines, all of your dependencies, and all of your subjugations that you have submitted yourself to, and I know I use that wrong, but you've submitted yourself to others. Uh, those relationships have been severed, and now you are being forced in a lot of ways to be the sovereign that you always were, to make your own decisions, to think for yourself. And now more than ever, you can't think for yourself and just continuously get it wrong. You've got to get it right for you. And that's the formula for getting it right for you. So it's time for you to find it. It's time for you to stop depending on others to feed you what you should think. And it's time for you to trust yourself, to grow, and use those unrefined thoughts that come and play with them daily to start uh sharpening your ability to come up with your own thoughts, your own feelings, and your own insights. So guess what? Yep, my time is up. I thank you for yours. This has been MichelleSpiva, your practical priestess of wisdom, with another podcast of Wisdom Smack. Don't forget to check the show notes, like, subscribe, share, and hey, even check out how to support us in the show notes. And because this is a daily podcast, I am going to see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful one. Bye. And that's going to do it for today's podcast of Wisdom Smack with MichelleSpiva. If you like this podcast, please help us get the word out. Like, comment, subscribe, and even share. And if you really like it, please help us continue to get the word out by considering using this show's link for Amazon. So when you want to go to Amazon and you do all of your general shopping, please use MichelleSpiva.com/AMZ. It's simple as that. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and this show might receive a little bit of commission that will go towards helping to further get these episodes out to you and to others. So thank you so much for listening. This has been MichelleSpiva with Wisdom Smack. Bye.